Hey everybody, this is Kevin Daleen, and I'm excited to welcome you to my podcast called Shop Talk, where we're going to interview local entrepreneurs and community leaders to hopefully get actionable insights on how they've built their lives and their businesses that you, the audience, can take with them and hopefully implement into your life and your business. Well, welcome Joe Reeves with Iron Video Productions, the man behind the scenes.
Yeah, usually behind the camera, and as you can see by, the main, there's usually a reason for it.
Well, you got a lot to share though.
Yeah.
So for the audience who doesn't know you, you're the guy who helps us produce this whole show, helped us come up with some of the equipment and the ideas for it, and just a great resource to have. So thank you for all you do.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I remember you were like telling us at BNI, like, hey, I'm going to start a podcast. And I was like, dude, that's literally what I do. Like, let me help you out.
Yeah.
And it just kind of went from there. Eventually I'm trying to keeping my eye out on things that'll allow you to be self-sustainable and be able to do it on your own. And then I can just be a resource that way because no one wants to pay buttloads of money year over year. So just trying to help get you guys established is kind of my goal.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, it's a nice thing for you to do. And I think it kind of goes to the core of your business, right? You're helping people get their name out there. You're helping them get off the ground.
yeah,
I've seen you work with people that have came in here. You're offering to help them in ways that they're taken back by your generosity. So,
all right. Yeah, I appreciate that. I think one of the things that I value is adding value. Like that's literally like my slogan that I can't, like my BNI inspired slogan is like to be able to add value one frame at a time. Like, and if I'm not adding value to somebody, then I don't even want to be doing the job for you in a sense. And I know that sounds backwards. Like I actually just dropped a client not that long ago, and they didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. It just became a matter of like what I'm doing actually isn't what you need right now. It's not helping you. And so I sent them to like Jim Filatico. I'm like, what he's doing in the digital space is more what you need than what I'm providing for you. And so I'm not going to make you pay me for 12 months when this isn't what you need right now. You need that first, and then maybe I can help you out.
Yeah. Well, that's good because a lot of people would let the greed get in front of them.
Yeah.
You're building a client, a retainer, and then you're going to lose that client because they're like, okay, well, this didn't help. They're going to look at the end of the year, say, I spent X, got nothing back, and then you're gone forever. Whereas now you pard them off to somebody who might be able to help them, and then you might get a long-term client once they're established a little more, and you can have somebody for life.
Yeah.
So it's a wise move.
Well, and two, it's like I've been on the wrong end of that, right? Where somebody's like, oh, we're going to do this and you need to do this and this and this. And it ends up just being bogus. It's a sham. And, I was out like $16,000 one time. You know the story with the
plumbing, right? Plumbing gone wrong.
And I'm just like, I refuse to do that to people. I refuse to kind of be a shyster, and that's like the weird thing is like we grow up like seeing this like TV image of salespeople, like they're kind of like this just slimy, like
the used car salesman.
Yeah. And it's just like, one of the things I've actually appreciated, this isn't the BNI podcast, but that's how we met,
that's how through our Walworth County BNI chapter.
Yeah. I'd like that is what so drew me in was this like idea of people who were business people and in sales, right? Because that's what we're all selling, whether it's B2B or B2C, like we're all selling something. I'm selling something, but I'm not going to sell something just because I need to sell it. I want to sell something that I actually believe in and something that's actually going to be helpful. And so that's kind of like seeing that in people where it's like, oh, this is actually going to be helpful to people. And if it's not going to be helpful to people, then we're going to like honor that. And so it's not just me that has that business model. And that's really what drew me into that is like, there are people who are salespeople, who are business people, who, we all want to make a profit. We all need to make a profit. That's
the function of business, right?
Right. But we're actually doing things that are helpful. And it's not, and like, that's the thing is like, that's what takes it out of schemy, sleazy. It's like, this is helpful. You need to do this and I'm going to provide it to you. And so that was a big attraction for me. And so, yeah, I don't know if I answered a question in there or not, but here we are.
We're learning, right?
Yeah.
I guess backing it up for the audience, what tell everybody what your full scope of services is, because obviously you help us produce this podcast, but you do a a bunch of different stuff.
Yeah, so I do everything from like social media campaigns, building the advertising for it, the media piece, the content piece for them. I've actually helped people run their social media campaigns. Not my favorite thing to do. Shout out Jim Flatico.
Little monotonous, right?
Yeah. Like, I'd prefer to just make the content, is what I've discovered. But from that to like weddings, my wife and I, she's a photographer too, so we do like weddings together, which is super fun.
Video and photography.
Yeah. My wife's been a photographer for 20 years. And then all the way up to I started like getting really passionate about documentary filmmaking, and so I actually push clients to like make what I would call like mini docs or branded docs, because it's a little bit more like rapport building and trust building. And like something we talked about before the podcast was that, that's important, because right now, statistically, ages like 45 to 55 are the people who are spending the most money in our country. So in 10 to 15 years, those people who are, 25 to 35 right now, or 20 to 35 right now, they're going to be in the bracket of people who are spending the most money in our country. And the only way that they understand rapport and trust building is digitally.
Oh yeah.
Like they're native.
We were talking an example of like Carvana or something, right? Or no shade to the older people, but I don't think that they're as comfortable just going on your phone and, hey, look at this. We got a Tesla Model 3 and it's XYZ, and we'll order it and it comes out of the car vending machine. Whereas people that are more in our, generation are fine doing that. That's how we grew up. We had a phone in our pocket for most of our life, and it just feels natural.
Well, and I'm in a unique position. So I'm 36. I'm going to be 37 in a couple weeks. And actually, by the time this episode airs, I'll be 37.
All right.
And I remember being in that age group, like not even knowing what a computer was, to having to take like keyboarding class and typing class in middle school. And so like I was definitely not native.
Yeah.
I didn't have my first cell phone until I was almost 18. And so it was just this weird dichotomy of worlds that I've lived in. Like I've seen both sides. My kids know how to operate my computer better than I do. And this is what I do as a profession.
It's like
they're native.
Exactly. Like their brain was wired from it somehow, right? It's like subconsciously it knew how to operate an iPhone. It might also just be that technology nowadays has been developed so intuitively too, where it's just like
it 100% is.
You understand, oh, this just is a logical thing to do. If I click this button, it does X, right?
Well, and when you're native to it, it's like it is almost like a whole language. Like my kids understand, my 8-year-old daughter understands the language of the internet. So like almost scary. You know what I mean? Like we've had to be like, how did you do that? You should not know how to do that. And she's like, do you not know how? Like my 8-year-old's like, do you not know how to do that? Like, what is happening? So this is important for us to understand from a marketing standpoint, from a business standpoint, from a relational standpoint. I shot a wedding a couple years ago, and the groom, the first time he met most of his groomsmen was the day of the wedding, because they were all like online, like World of Warcraft, like buddies or Call of Duty, and they'd only played online, and they'd developed this friendship completely online. And the first time they met was on the day of his wedding. And I remember it being so weird, like looking at the head table, everybody was friends with each other, but they were all playing a game on their phone. Like they weren't interacting.
Yeah.
They were next to each other face to face, but they were like playing a game at the head
and
table.
I hate to sound like a cranky old man, but there's a balance, and I think that one might be tipping a little too far.
Well, 100%. But like the point is like this is the group of people that in 10 to 15 years are going to be spending money on.
Yeah, they're going to have the most financial power of the generations, right?
Correct.
They're going to be purchasing, and
I mean, based on the trends now, right? Like
who knows?
Maybe nobody has anything in 15 years,
But,
But the point I'm trying to make is, if we want to be wise stewards of our business practices, then we need to lean into something that is going to be like, this is not just the future, it is the now. Like I bought my last car on Carvana because it was cheaper. everything, like they have the whole Carfax things now. And I'm like, okay, well, I've never test drove this car, but it's great ratings. It's $4,000 or $5,000 cheaper buying it on Carvana than at a car dealership. And so we pulled the trigger, and it's been the best car we've ever bought.
And you don't have to make all those trips to the dealership. Now, that was maybe a different example for internet companies, but there's a lot of those things where if you get enough information and you can make an informed decision, why not, right?
Right.
Nowadays, there's virtual tours of houses. There's all sorts of things. We can remote estimate in my business most projects by just a 3D scan of the property.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, those Matterport things.
Yeah, like I don't even have to go to a house to write up the estimate for an insurance company, and it's insane,
Yeah, and I mean, even one of the things that I looked into, part of the reason I got licensed to operate a drone was because there's now drone surveying. You can, instead of spending 3 weeks to survey a property and pay somebody, it could be $35,000 or so to do that for, landscapers, home builders, stuff like that.
Yep.
You can use a drone and do the same thing and get a topography map.
Is it LiDAR or something? Like what? How does it?
Yeah, there's a variant of LiDAR, but it's all photo. You take like this string of photos on the drone, and then you put it through like a LiDAR software.
Okay.
And it surveys fairly accurately
enough to make a decision about stuff, right?
Yeah. And so I thought about doing that, and like just the different ways you can use video photo production is astronomical. And so that's kind of what like got me in the idea of launching the career too. But yeah, back to the point of doing all that stuff, I realize how important it is, because this space, digital content creation, it's going to be the only space that people coming up into the, wealth building years of life is going to be the only way they know how to build trust and rapport. This is even how they're gaining relationships. So it's just something we can't ignore and be like crotchety old people about. Like we have to.
You just have to embrace it.
We have to.
It's like embracing the internet back in the late 90s.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to do it.
And it's becoming rapid, like pattern disruption. The idea of the doom scrollers and like how do you get their attention? And
I was just about to ask, so in the world of everybody's attention span shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, how do you get people to understand a story and trust a brand with such short times, right? It's like a lot of people aren't going to watch something past 5 minutes or even 30 seconds sometimes. So how do you, is it just the quality of the content that gets that engagement, or what is it?
So it's two things, I think. And again, I'm not an expert, but I've done some research on this because it's, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
The first thing is you have to have a really, really good hook. And by hook, I mean something that catches their attention, pattern disruption. Like if your aim is to make social media content, for example, what am I going to put in the post or in the media, in the content that is going to catch someone's attention so they'll look for longer than a scroll, right? And if you're advertising, it becomes really difficult because people don't really trust advertising right now, because while Facebook generates $40 billion a year on Facebook advertising, it's usually kind of like the Amazon deal hunter shoppers that are buying stuff.
Yeah.
And so for the average person, they're actually not scrolling through, and they get kind of ticked off when they see advertising. And so the thing that I tell people is that you need to do things that are like brand awareness campaigns, where you're not trying to actually sell anything. You're just trying to show that you're trustworthy. Like you need that content. How do you, and like, I think, you're doing a good job by answering questions for people. Like you do the
FAQ Fridays.
Like that's brilliant to me, because you're giving away basically free information, and you're actually giving information away that would help people not need to use you as a business, because they're protecting themselves. And so if you can give away that information, you're going to build trust, because you're showing people that you're here to add value. You're not just trying to make a dollar. You're here for them. You're here for their well-being. And so that's a super good, easy avenue to start building trust, right? Is giving away the information. Don't gatekeep stuff so that you can make a bigger profit later.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense in this day's economy, right? It's like...
But even in that, you have to have a hook. You have to have something that'll disrupt their pattern, right? Why would I stop and look at this frequently asked question? What kind of question am I asking? Is this a question that applies to me? right?
And is
so,
that mainly, do you think, because let's just take video for an example. Somebody's got to start watching the video in order to get to the hook. So is it usually in like the tagline or on the caption or something?
Yeah.
Right. You make
in the
it
description, something that pops. And that's why,
Yeah.
like, again, knowing what's native, I always put like those emojis, the emoticons, or like the little pop-up stickers that will catch something's eye.
Yeah.
Catch somebody's eye, right? Like something that if they're scrolling down the thing, they'll see, well, that's different, like even subconsciously. So you want to break the pattern. And then you really have like 3 seconds to tell your hook in the content. Another just piece of free advice, always caption every video, because most people doom scroll with in silence. Like they don't have the audio on, even if they're watching reels.
If you've sat next to somebody who's quote unquote doom scrolling with their audio on, it hurts your brain. If you're not in the zone watching it with them, you just hear music, music, somebody screaming. Like it sounds insane.
It is.
So when
scary.
if you ever look at somebody like at an airport, you're listening to them, you're like, how the hell is that enjoyable? And then you'll find yourself doing it. You'll be on Instagram or X or whatever, right?
But that's why a lot of people do it silent. Like they're just visually looking at it. And so if you have in your video content things that will get them to the meat of the content, that's like you need that. And so you always want captions. You always want, and most Facebook stuff now auto captions, which is semi-accurate, but it's not the best. And so there's just things you can do. And again, we talked about it earlier too. You're just giving yourself the best chance. Like it's all marketing is a crapshoot. It's based off of trend research and what's popular, and like that's why they pay athletes and actors millions of dollars to be in their advertisements.
Just that one split second of your face to capture somebody's attention, right?
Oh, this guy likes,
Yeah.
And so when you're a small business or small to mid-tier business and you don't have like product deals to
I can't go pay LeBron James to talk about my whatever, right?
Right. Like then you just have to figure out, okay, what's the best way to disrupt the pattern? And that's why high quality content is important. And if you don't have access to high quality content, start somewhere, make something, use your cell phone, do a selfie, get yourself out there consistently. And then the higher quality the content, the better chance you give yourself. And I say that because obviously that's what I believe. That's the foundation of how my company started. And sometimes that's not even true. Sometimes it's like, I remember my wife made, do you remember the suspect challenge thing? Where like couples were like roast each other, but it was like, they were like chasing each other, like,
like cops and robbers almost.
But it was like, one person's got the phone and they're filming like chasing him like a cop, like the suspect's heading down the road, like describing the suspect, but it would just be a roast. Yeah. So my wife was like, so one thing about me, I used to be 400 pounds. I would pass out when I laugh. It's just like happen, like I'd lose oxygen. I'd and so my wife's like, suspect passes out when he laughs, and we're chuckling. And that she made that video on her cell phone. It took us like 4 minutes, and she put it together. Didn't hashtag anything. Didn't do anything at all to like do a pattern disruption. She just thought it was funny, wanted to try it, put it out there, and it got 200,000 views.
Yeah, and so it's like it's a total crapshoot.
Yeah, it's total crapshoot.
A good example of that is, you remember the old Dollar Shave Club ads, like where it was like low production quality commercials, and they were just hilarious. It was low production quality, but they worked. Right, and they had like a cult following behind them, and then it became a thing, right, where it was like their niche is just funny, low budget commercials.
100%.
So it doesn't necessarily need to be high production value, but creative. And then what's your take on frequency? Should people be posting all the time, or is it you find a cadence? Like, how do you?
I think generally speaking, there's such an inundation too. It's like all of these things are like with a grain of salt and like a consideration of all the different factors. I've listened to, like, have you heard of that Gary Vee guy? He's like the most, he's obnoxious and I can't stand him. Yep. But he's really, really smart. Yep. And he would say, just post something every day. And my tendency is to disagree with that. And he's huge and I'm like this little peon. Yeah. But from the consumer standpoint, like it drives me crazy. And so I think that you need a cadence, especially to start. Like if you have no following, if you have nothing and you're starting from ground zero, don't overwhelm yourself.
Yeah.
Take baby steps.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And if yeah, because otherwise you're kind of like ramming your product down people's throats when they really don't know you or trust you enough to have it. Anymore.
Right.
I follow people that where I went to like high school with, and they start selling something, right? It's some, for lack of a better term, it's probably like a Ponzi scheme type deal, right? And I'm getting 50 posts a day about like a makeup product, and I'm like, I don't wear makeup.
Right.
I'm not going to be buying my girlfriend makeup because I'm not going to make that decision for her. So chill on the posts, you know, and it's like find your lane, maybe tone it down a little bit.
Well, and to your point, what you're getting is advertising.
Mm-hmm.
And so though advertising is important, when you're online, the way that you're going to differentiate yourself from just the next advertiser is by having content that's wholesome, vulnerable, that people can relate to. And that's ultimately, if you make less posts that people are going to relate to, you're going to build a following. And when you have a following, then you're going to have a group of people who trust you, and you have rapport in a space that's native to them. And so I think that it's a much more organic, and advertising has its place. That's what I do. I'm not knocking it, but that's why I push for people to do podcasts. I push for people to have, in addition to high quality content that I could produce for them, to have like crappy cell phone, vulnerable, like, because that's what's going to resonate with
Ty
people.
Lopez videos here in my garage. You
Yeah,
remember those?
yeah, like just something that helps people know too, like you're not just out to get their business, you're actually out to help them.
Yeah, and teach them about whatever industry you're in.
And that can be a slow burn, and that's okay, because like if the trends are true, we have 10 to 15 years to do it. We just got to start doing it. And that's what you're seeing is people trying to, and then it gets overwhelming, and then they, and that's part of the reason where I come in and I can add that value is I can help come up with a plan for you to just get started. I can help execute the plan. I can record the content. I can even help you make that content look that authentic, original. Like I have all of the tools necessary to do that. And then what I'm learning is I don't know this for sure. Like there's no research that I have found on it, but everything that is fad goes in waves. And so I'm curious if this short form, like kitschy content is going to take a dip, and people are going to like long for something more wholesome and substantial.
Yeah.
Like likening it to like, fast food is great, but I made my family, steak and corn and mashed potatoes the other day, and I was like, oh, I didn't know how much I needed that.
Yeah. It's like there's a time and a place for a McDonald's, and there's a time and place for a home cooked meal.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
I think I agree with you. I mean, there's specifically, I think podcasts, it's very big right now, right? It's a hot topic, but in general, I think they help people's attention span, because most podcasts are relatively long form, especially when you compare them to YouTube Shorts or TikTok or something like that, right? And I think people like to get the full story. You're listening to more political podcasts, you get the full story from that person. They can't really hide behind a 60-second segment, or if it's somebody's life biography that they're explaining on it, you hear the whole thing from their perspective, and it's not a little clip, And so I agree. I don't know if it would totally go away, but it would be, I think it ebbs and flows, right? It's like these will be hot for 5-10 years, and then they'll fade away, and then, things will come back. It's kind of like podcasts are the new radio show, right?
Mm-hmm.
Radio was huge,
No,
and now these are just the new radio shows.
Well, and it's, to your point, you get the full picture, and then like the marketing strategy is clipping out shorts.
Yeah,
right?
we do the same thing. Yeah,
and it's so multiple, and that's like the other thing too is if you can take one piece of content and make it multifunctional, the ROI on that piece of content then just increases.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's why I'm a huge proponent of podcasts. It's super popular. It's not going anywhere. Podcasting, thanks to Joe Rogan, is only going to get more popular.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a way. Like I notice, like I listened to a podcast on my way here, driving in. It was a 45-minute drive. Threw on a podcast that I was, around a thing that I was interested in. And this is a way that people are consuming content, because you don't need all of your attention, you can still do things like drive.
Yeah, you
or
can work, yeah.
And so, like this is a form of content that is only going to increase in popularity and demand. So
I think the popularity is good too because it can get so specific. Like there's podcasts that are so specific in the restoration industry, like where it's just sales and marketing or it's operations and it's like, and that's for everybody's industry and everybody's life. You could really get super, right on the button
drill
with what you
down,
want to
yeah.
learn. And that's nice because, you'd back in the day, might have to read 50 books to get that one nugget of information where now you can just kind of scroll through. You can go, this isn't really what I'm thinking. On to the next. This,
Yeah.
and it's a lot quicker. And then you can really get some insights from them. So
Right.
they're powerful tools.
Well, and to your point, let's say you're in a podcast like you had one with Troy or Buck or any of the previous guests, and there's a valuable piece of information. You can clip that out and make that a YouTube video and make that searchable on YouTube, and people who are looking for that specific thing, like the amount, it's kind of scary. I don't know if I should admit to this, but well, it's not scary.
You about to
for
sell
me.
yourself out of a deal or something?
No. It's just like when I heard it kind of freaked me out, and I don't necessarily want to scare people, but this is what happens. Like the age of YouTube tutorials, there's a group of doctors, brain surgeons. One of my best friend's his dad's a brain surgeon, and he was telling us that he got this case in a hospital in Texas, and he's looking at it, and this brain surgeon goes, I don't know what to do right now in this moment because of this one thing. And so he paused surgery, went, and he knew this other brain surgeon on YouTube that has dealt with this. And so he went and looked up on YouTube what this specific thing was, figured it out, and then performed the surgery based off of what YouTube told him to do because this other brain surgeon. And I was like, no. Like YouTube is for if you need to learn how to change your oil, not if you need to learn how to do brain surgery.
Change your brain's oil, right?
Yeah, like it's just, so it was like, that kind of freaked me out. But then I was like, it makes sense.
It's just kind of the world we're living in.
Yeah, you can, like my wife, I walked in on her changing out a light fixture. And I was like, no, do you want to die? Like that's how people die. That's why you hire an electrician to do that. And she's like, no, I watched this thing on YouTube, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Like,
it's a double-edged sword because it can help, and then it also keeps businesses like mine in business when somebody decides that they're the plumber that needs to fix their sink or something.
and like, yes, like the point in that is there's so many opportunities to get the information out there if it's good information, but there is bad information.
Yeah.
Too. Like,
and back to your original point about leveraging one piece of content. Nowadays, you can turn them into so many things. You can turn a podcast into clips, into a YouTube video. I'm sure you could take the transcript from a podcast and somehow turn it into a blog if you wanted to.
Oh,
like
100%.
there's just endless ways to do it.
That's actually what people do. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's, it just makes sense. If you're going to spend, we'll spend an hour here talking. If we can leverage it into 2 weeks worth of content, it's better for everybody's time, and the consumer still gets the value out of it.
Right. Right. And that's exactly like, again, if my whole thing is adding value, I want to be able to add as much value as I possibly can, because that's like what you're hiring me to do. So that's huge.
If you were to find a business that was just starting right there and there, maybe their first year, what would be the first thing that you would tell them to do to get more online presence? Would it be, like what form of content do you think they should be putting out?
So the strategy that I would say is to leverage their personal social medias.
Okay.
To help their business build brand awareness. So not to sell yet. Again, if you're selling right off the bat and you're trying to sell, you might gain a few sales, but it's going to just break you in the long run. So to leverage their friends, leverage any content that they make, crappy cell phone, selfie, share it from their business profile, share it from their personal profile, gain followers, build a brand with really starting out grassroots. And that's how a lot of this stuff starts, as grassroots. And then post content every other day.
Okay. Content in, I guess, whatever your strength is. If you're good at taking photos or making videos or doing blogs, it kind of doesn't matter? Or is it you should focus maybe more on clips? Like what's your...
I would say Instagram Reel, TikTok Reel type stuff.
Okay.
YouTube Shorts. like something like that. And that's the other thing about the multiplicity of it. If you make an Instagram reel, you can post that. It instantly can post to Facebook, right? Because you have some people that are only on Instagram, some people are on Facebook. You can post it to TikTok. You can post it to YouTube Shorts. And now you have that one video that's working for you on
you've leveraged it 3 times.
A bunch of platforms. And so use all the platforms available because you never know what's going to stick, right? And that's kind of the R&D of your marketing strategy is I would just tell people to experiment, right? Like Tim Werwe, my advice to him, the State Farm agent, you had him on the show. When I was meeting with him, my advice to him was like, he tells corny dad jokes and people love it. And that's like his thing.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with State Farm insurance.
But they like him for it.
But they
right?
like him. Like he's genuine. He's goofy. He's funny. I'm like, Tim, you need to just make videos of you telling dad jokes. Like people will watch that and then you'll gain a following. And then when you have that following, then you can leverage that in a positive way built off relationship and rapport and stuff like that. And because the other thing too is I'm dealing in the realm of like, I'm not dealing with people with Nike budgets.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like
we're small businesses.
Small
right?
businesses. We have to grassroots campaign, right? We have to build rapport. We have to build trust. Content just does that on a digital platform. So it's not like what I'm proposing to people isn't the Gary V, like go and sell the crap out of everything. Like,
have you seen some of the parodies of him?
Oh, it's ridiculous.
I'm laughing right now just because I'm thinking about him. I respect what he's done, but some of there's like Trevor Wallace does some impressions of him, and they're so funny.
Because it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And like, honestly, the thing that he sells the most is ridiculousness. And, but people buy it up.
Yeah.
And it is, again, no disrespect. Like, I'm not afraid that this podcast is ever going to reach his ears and he's like some. I'm
gonna get a DM next week.
Yeah, some low life. Like, that's like not what I'm worried about. But he found a niche and a pattern disruption that worked, and people buy into it. Like the whole idea that you can get famous and go viral on is like people want that. They're like into that, and so. That's like what he does. And people buy into that because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for shortcuts around what's really, really hard to do. And
there's not really a shortcut.
There's not. And most people will like never, ever, ever get the amount of success as that guy. Right. Because that's just not how
he's
it works.
He's selling the dream on
He's
it.
selling an idea that you can. And like, and you talked about Ponzi scheme and like pyramid schemes. That's how that works. Is like, these people try to sell you on the idea that you can be better than they were. And the reality is like 1 or 2 people on the planet will ever reach that, right? Like in that scheme. And that's why it works is you essentially have to prey on the hope of an idea that you can gain success if you follow the formula. And that's just not realistic.
I think
for most
a good litmus test for that is if you go on their bio, if they are selling a course, don't put in my bullshit meter will go off, right? It's like, okay, if you're selling a course and you're putting all this stuff out here, look at the meaning of it. Are you just trying to sell tickets to it, or you actually have some good intent with it?
And that's honestly what I appreciate about, not gatekeeping your information. Like people have these like what you're doing. Again, not to like stroke your ego or whatever, but it's like give away the information. And that's I tell people all the time. I have a client that I'm in negotiations with right now, and they're like, I don't really want to pay for all of this stuff. And I'm like, then don't. Let me help you come up with a cheaper solution. Like I actually want you to be successful. And so I'm kind of doing the same thing that I'm doing with you. And they don't have the budget to afford a podcast producer. And so I'm giving them a plan, and it's not going to look or sound as good, but it's going to be something.
It's better to have it than to just let it stay in your brain and never amount to an executed idea.
I am not a gatekeeper of information. I think that drives me crazy.
Yeah. Well, this podcast is a testament to that because we built the studio before we knew how we were going to do it, and then I was like, Joe, can you help me do it myself? Like, can you show me what I should buy, what we should do it? And then I came to the conclusion to do it the way I wanted to do it. We didn't have the cash to do that right away. I mean, there's, tens of thousands of dollars of stuff in here right now. And, so you're more than willing to just tell me what to do, but you're like, I can also help you with it. And we decided that's probably the better way to go.
What's funny too is doing this podcast in the setting in here is actually kind of difficult to film in. And so I realized there was things. So I bought stuff for my company based on how good or bad it went in here. So it was like, I like the new camera I have. I was like, when I was thinking about buying, I'm like, oh, this will make Kevin's podcast look so much better. Like, just,
well, yeah, in hindsight, we should have probably reverse engineered the studio, right?
Yeah.
Figure out what equipment we have, then build the box around it. Where I was like, okay, let's build a box. Let's make it soundproof. Let's put carpet in here.
Yeah.
And we just kind of figured it out. Hindsight, anybody who's looking to build a studio, get the equipment, figure out what you need first, then build the box around it.
Well, and the thing is this is actually one of the best places I've filmed in, but it's really dark in here, and black material doesn't reflect at all. It soaks up.
Yeah,
and so this light I bought because of the studio is a 200 watter. I have mostly 60 watt bulbs. I'm a small company, and but it helps me grow. So I love the challenge.
Yeah,
of that.
I don't know, for some reason, just when we were conceptualizing it, I'm not normally like, I'm gonna be, when we're in a black shirt, I was gonna say
Same.
black's not normally my like go-to color, but it just kind of felt right. But it comes with its own challenges.
Yeah, 100%. When honestly, it's more challenging to film in an all white space. So I'd prefer all black to all white
because you can manage it, right?
You can manage
you might
it.
need more light, but you can manage it.
Right.
Whereas it's like not reverberating around everywhere, right?
When white walls on film just don't look good. It's plain and kind of ugly, and like what is supposed to be white, and I'm getting into the technical details of color balance and like light bounce and stuff like that. It's just, it can go crazy. And then you can get like what it'll look like sunspots on your forehead because it reflected weird off the wall. And like,
you could just go down a rabbit hole, right?
Yeah,
And the other thing is, I didn't want it to look like, I feel like every podcast studio you see now has like a kind of a light colored wood in it and has, like a random bookshelf in the back or something like that.
Yeah.
I wanted to just make it something that it wasn't like
when
all
it
the
fits
other,
your brand.
Yeah,
Like this is, you have your brand, you have your, it looks really good.
This was more challenging to hang, and I think people understand.
Sure. make it not just wrinkly.
Well, it's like to get it all straight, because the fabric stretches really easy. It was a nightmare. I'm glad we got it up.
It looks good.
Yeah,
I like it.
We might be doing a rebrand soon, so we might have to pull it down and get the new one up there.
Foreshadowing for the folks.
Yeah, exactly. Disclaimer.
Yeah. What's the rebrand going to be?
So the business actual name is Daleen Services.
Okay.
And so we're probably going to go back to that because we're encompassing more services as we grow.
Right.
So we don't get confusing. We have the restoration brand and the attic, brand, but have some other businesses that we have inside of our sphere, and I just don't want it to get confusing. I've seen plenty of businesses where you look at them and you have no idea what they do. Whereas services is pretty encompassing. It's okay, great. They're a service company. They do X, Y, and Z. Not they're a restoration company that does this, that does this. It seems a little too.
Yeah.
So working on it. It's a process. I will say it's. I wish I would have had the hindsight to do that earlier, because to do it now that we're established is expensive. Everything we have has our logo and our name on it, and our trucks and our website and all of our marketing material. It's like, my God, so you live and you learn, it's just another problem to overcome.
But that's the thing about you though, that just really impresses me. And this is, I tell people all the time, like, I started my own company because I thought it would be better to work really hard for myself and my family than to work for somebody else and make $18 an hour.
Yeah.
Or, when I was 18, I worked at Walmart and I made $6.25 an hour, and I remember at that time, like, holy cow, I made $6 an hour. I was like flunking out of school because I was working so much. And it's like, I'm a hard worker.
Yep.
It's just what I do.
Yep.
And kind of coming out of my last situation, which I haven't even talked about the origin of how I started the company, but the idea here was, if I'm going to work that hard, like, I want to do that for myself. And what's inspiring about seeing ever since I've known you, and we don't know each other super well. You're like 10 years younger than I am, right?
Yeah, I'm 26.
26, yeah.
Yep.
It's like inspiring to watch. Just, you're a grinder, you're a go-getter, you care about people, you have a good culture. Like, I can, even when I was setting up today, just seeing how you interact with the guys that work for you, you have a great culture, and you're just building something really, really special, I think. that is way more worth it than just clocking in at a 9 to 5. No disrespect to
No,
that.
there's
People need that.
Yep.
But I'm a huge proponent of starting your own business and adding value and doing that. And you do it as good as anybody I've seen. So,
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's the one goal I have with this, is to make it something where even like I just want a place where I can come in and it would be a place that I would want to work.
Right.
Right. If I were the employee here, am I having a good time? Is it something I feel compelled to help the customers instead of just clocking in? Right. That's really, when you boil it down, I think that solves a lot of problems if you just attack a business with that mindset. Right. It's build something that you'd want to work for, and I think the rest follows.
Yeah.
So.
When you're, there's a lot of my like mentors and people that I go to for just guidance and stuff like that. In my space, they say if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
For sure.
And that's something I've seen you like really latch onto, is you're pulling people into this business model that can help you go farther.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not, I don't need to get there in a year.
Right.
We're going to get there eventually. It's a marathon, but we're going to get there.
Right. And so like that, and that's a part of why you wanted to start the podcast, right? Like you wanted to get the information out to people. You wanted to show off other businesses. You wanted to help your fellow man and provide content to people that like could use some of this. Like,
yeah.
We were talking about like the episode you shot with Buck, and
Yep.
just that episode hasn't even dropped yet, and it's gaining traction because
the
there's
shorts.
such good things that people are interested in and can help. And
Yeah, it must have struck a chord with the roofing industry, right? Where he's talking about some of the struggles that industry is
Yeah.
facing and the technical things. And it's just, that's what I want to do. I want to get the name out there. And I provide, I think, ideas best on just conversations.
Mhm.
And this is just a conversation with a camera.
Right.
I have no writing skills. So I can't sit down and write a blog post, but I think I could talk my way through a blog post, right?
Yeah,
So
100%.
it's just, you got to find your alley and,
Yeah.
and then try and get the stuff up from there,
Which goes back to a question that you had asked earlier, is like, what advice would you give?
Mhm.
That's a huge piece of advice I would give, is like, find where are you comfortable? Where's your niche? And how can you get content in that space?
Yeah.
Right. Like,
Yeah, if you're a great writer, write
Right.
blog posts, write
Right.
long Facebook posts, right?
right. Yeah. So that's where I'm at with that stuff. And I think you're knocking it out of the park.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So you were tapping on how you started the business. Can you give everybody your origin story about how you got into this?
So I used to be in ministry. I used to be a pastor, youth pastor, and I did that for a long time. Almost 20 years.
Really?
Yeah. And in 2020, like lo and behold, 2020 changed everything
Yeah.
for everybody.
That little thing we call pandemic, right?
Yeah. I just refer to it as 2020. It feels
Just
less,
a blip.
Yeah. It feels less, right.
Yeah.
The Thanos snap.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The world just, what?
I was a youth pastor at that time, and literally everything shut down. And we had a digital media person. So at this point, I have no idea how to run a camera. My wife's been a photographer for about 15 years. I'm a youth pastor. I would say like my creativity really was in music. Like I'm a drummer, guitar player. I'd never really explored any other art or media.
Mhm.
And 2020 happens. Our digital media person is now the busiest person in our church.
Because you got, would you guys go virtual right away, right?
Completely virtual. We would pre-record sermons and worship, and then do like a live post on YouTube, and that's how we had church for like 6 months. And he was too busy. I'm just like, oh, could you do that for youth group? And he was like, no, there's no.
I'm strung out here, man. I'm
he's-
running on all cylinders.
He was the busiest person in our church
Yeah.
for 6 months. And so I was like, well, I don't know how I'm going to have a youth group. Digital is the only way to do it. So I used my wife's little Canon camera.
Mhm.
And I didn't know anything, but he gave me a couple YouTube links. And so I started learning it, and I took her camera and I put it on like a bunch of books, because we didn't have a tripod. And they're like, make sure you light yourself. And so I grabbed like my phone flashlight to have some sort
Yeah.
of like extra light. And I just would film sermons. And then I'd put it on YouTube, and then I'd put a private link on the YouTube description so that we could have small group via Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
And I just did that, and I got better and better and better at filming and learning stuff, and I grew. And somebody from our church was like, "Hey, I heard that you know how to operate a video camera now." And I was like, "Yeah, I've been doing it for youth group. It's, I actually think I kind of like it,
Yeah.
kind of enjoy it. It's fun." And they're like, "Oh, do you want to film my daughter's wedding?" And I was like, "Those are different."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's like,
This is
"Cool."
me in front of a camera, not
Right.
your
Yeah.
wife's wedding.
Yeah, and he's like, "We'll
Or
give
your
you
daughter's wedding.
We'll give you $1,500." And I was like, "I'll figure it out."
Sold.
Yeah, I'm done. Yeah, I'll do that. And so I figured I need to start figuring that out. So I watched a bunch of YouTube videos, like we're talking about that. Leaned into some friends who have done that, and shot a wedding on a little Sony A6000 I bought for $200. So I was like, "Well, I'm gonna make 1,500." So
Yeah.
bought this, drove to the sketchy part of
Little
Milwaukee.
marketplace find,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. And but it was like $200. It had everything I needed, in a camera that my wife's camera didn't have.
Yeah.
It was like what YouTube people were saying you need 1080p, 60 frames a second. My wife's camera couldn't
These
do
are all
that.
probably lingos that are going over your head at that time, right?
Right.
It's just your-
Yeah, I'm just like,
too many phrases.
yeah. So what that means is, you can have most things that you see with your eye are 24 frames a second. Like that's kind of the correlation. That's the standard frame rate.
Yeah.
And then 60 frames a second allows you to put things in like 2 times slow motion.
Okay.
Okay. And then having 4K, filming in 4K versus filming in 1080, right? Which is
Just higher quality, right?
Yeah, the resolution of like most things that you watch on your TV are going to be in 1080 unless you have a 4K TV with something that was shot in 4K. Then you're going to get that full 4K resolution. So that's kind of that. But yeah, they're like, so I found the cheapest camera that had those capabilities, and I bought it for like $250 on Facebook Marketplace, and drove down to Milwaukee, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, am I going to get mugged? Is this a setup?" Super nice guy, super awesome guy. He sold me the camera and the lens, and went and shot the wedding with it, and used my wife's camera as a backup camera. And I remember like nervous. I was so nervous, like kind of freaking out because I'd never done this. And I put together the edit, and I showed my buddy who was one of my like first teachers in this realm, and he was the digital media guy at our church that didn't have time to do all this for me.
But he could help you,
But
advise
he'd
you
be
a
like,
little bit.
just show me some stuff. And I showed him the wedding video that I made, and he was like, he slams his hands on the table and walks away. And I was like, "That bad? Oh my gosh,
What did I
like
do?"
I'm never doing this again." And he goes, "I've never made a wedding video that good." And I was like, "Okay, there's
something here.
there's something here.
Yeah.
Like this is kind of a niche for me." And I'm like, "Okay, well, tell me exactly what I did so I could do that again."
Yeah.
And so it grew from there, and I was still in ministry. And then 2021, I got hired as a campus pastor. So I just kind of filmed for fun, and it was just something I enjoyed. I told my wife if I was ever not in ministry, like I would want to start my own video company. I'd want to just see where that goes, because I have so much fun making films. And 2023, just some really bad stuff with our church went down, and just the leadership became untrustworthy. I guess that's all I'll say about that. And just decided from an integrity standpoint that it was just something I couldn't be a part of. And so, like the flashbacks of like, oh yeah, I think if I wasn't going to be in ministry, I wanted to start a company. And so how can I make that work? How can I, do that? And so I went to a Mexican restaurant in my small town. I live in Jefferson. And I was just like, "Hey, can I make you a commercial?" And like, "I eat here all the time.
I know you got the product,
I know
right?
it's so good." Like, and he's like, "Yeah, sure." So I went and I shot him this like little dorky commercial, and it kind of went viral with like 20,000 views on Facebook or something like that. People from around town were like, "Hey, I saw that video. Like, could you make me one?" And that's kind of how I launched my company was like, I just started making social media videos for people that, you know, were blowing up because no one in my town was doing that.
That's a small Wisconsin town,
Small
right? And people
Wisconsin
aren't-
town.
yeah.
And so then the tourism commission hired me. I had a connection with a guy who operates, he's the director of operations for a bunch of franchised McDonald's, and he really hooked me up. He like gave me a stable income so that I could really figure out what I wanted to do with my company.
Give you
And
some breathing room.
yeah,
right?
and so it worked. And I still do a lot of work with them, and mostly PR stuff. So I don't do product, like a ton of product for McDonald's.
Yeah.
This particular franchise owner really, really wants to be involved in the community and help people. And so I'm a part of advertising for the things that they're trying to help out in a community. And so, yeah, that launched my career essentially. And then shortly after I launched, over like 6 or 7 months, I got an invite to BNI, and that took my career to the next level. Really, it was just a good group of people who are always out to help a brother out. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Well, and you're set up very nicely to just be a great service provider to a business owner, where it's like, okay, we're not all great at producing content, don't all have the time or the money to have all the equipment, so it's like a subcontractor for
Right.
that, right? You come in, you can help us produce a podcast, make a video, do a photo shoot. It just helps,
Yeah. And that's my aim, is like, I do think that this is going to be the only way to market soon,
Mhm.
right? Like, it's going to be the way that you build trust and rapport. And that's why I started leaning into documentary filmmaking, which is kind of where my career is going.
Mhm.
Is ultimately like, I want to make a feature film, and that's not something you typically make a ton of money with, but it's something I'm passionate about. And so I joined it. I actually paid for like a school, a documentary masterclass school thing. I don't know, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, masterclass, right?
Yeah. And learned a ton about filmmaking, and it's just something that's growing like a passion inside of me. And I'm seeing the value of the short form content for sure, but I'm seeing the value of this brand building thing that you can put on all of the platforms that you can leverage in all of the ways. And it's a little different than a podcast where we're hearing two sides of a story. Like, this is a very focused type of marketing for brand awareness. And for a small business, honestly, I think the biggest hurdle small businesses have is brand awareness, right? Like,
Well, because it's expensive. Like, if you're going to advertise your way to brand awareness, you could burn a real lot of money.
oh yeah,
It's,
and
you
it not
just-
be very productive.
Yeah, you can do all the billboards you want, all the Facebook ads. It's like you just can't compete with it. A
Right.
good example of that would be, I get the same ad from GoDaddy every day, 50 times a day on my YouTube. I already use GoDaddy. Like, I don't need to use them, but it's like, it's not a very compelling ad, but they have pumped it so many times that the next time I would think about, like, if I started another business and didn't want to spend money on building a website, I'd probably use them, but it's because they shoved it down my throat.
Right.
With all the money they
You
have.
have
they just-
access.
Yeah, exactly. And
And-
a small business doesn't have that kind of capital.
And that costs millions of dollars to
Oh,
do
yeah.
it like that.
Well, I mean, they have a famous actor in the commercial.
Yeah.
They also, God knows how much money they spent on the ads, right? I mean,
Right.
it's always on. And small businesses just can't compete on that level. So you gotta innovate the big companies who are maybe a little slower, less
Right.
nimble,
Right. Well, and the other thing too, I would say with advertising from a small, here's a free piece of information. if you're like, I'm going to make a video and I'm going to use it specifically in a paid advertising setting on Facebook, just start with like $5 a day. Use 2 pieces of content, A/B test that content for a week at $5 a day on each piece of content, just to see. And you'll find maybe this one works better than this one, and then you can pump more money into it because it's resonating more people.
Yeah. Otherwise, you could go spend $100 a day on something that just was never going to work because it wasn't good content, right? For whatever reason, it might be actually objectively good, but the algo doesn't think it is, right?
Exactly. And that's the thing is, when you're a small business, you want to you just want to. It's all a crapshoot. It's all a test.
Yeah.
Even like this is a strategy that the biggest marketing firms in the world use. Like they're A/B testing everything to see, and they you can actually set, if you run an A/B test after a few days, if content A is performing better than content B, you set an algorithm within your campaign that pushes money from content B over to content A, so that it's pushing it more automatically.
Yeah.
And so like learning how to not get discouraged with the crapshoot, but actually leverage it is really important for a small business, because that's the tools you have.
Yeah.
And Facebook, more than any other platform, gives you the easiest way to figure out how to leverage the marketing
Google
space.
is a nightmare. You ever try and look at Google ads? It's like you need an engineering degree to know.
Yeah, that's why people like Jim Falatico exist.
Yeah, right.
I've said his name like 5 times.
But it's true. You need somebody who knows their shit.
You just do.
Yeah.
And I know some of it. That guy's a genius. Like, he's somebody you should have on this podcast.
Yeah, I want to have him on. He's done our website. For those who don't know, he's a digital marketing agency. Or, he's not a digital marketing agency. He runs a digital marketing agency. But he does a great job. He did our website, does our ad campaign. So he's done
another BNI guy.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I know I can trust him.
Exactly. So
what? How much are we at here? Let's see. About an hour.
Yeah,
about the time frame of an episode. It's I'm used to like checking all the things. I have no idea if
I need
I'm even
to
in
get
focus.
a clock in the corner
100%.
so I can see, because I'm always like, you get in, like when you're doing these, you get in like a time warp. You're like, I don't know if I've been here for 5 hours or 30 minutes.
It feels.
Yeah.
This conversation felt very quick.
Well, yeah, it did, but that's how you know it was a good one.
Hey, there you go. Yes.
I got one question for you before we go is, if somebody were to start a podcast and they don't have the money to hire a producer or build a studio or anything like that, what do you think are the key things that they can do to get that started with as limited budget as possible?
I would say, if you want to, don't chintz on the microphones. Okay. That's the last thing you want to cheap on. So I would say, like, you could get an okay setup if you're just desperate to start. Film it on your cell phone and buy even a Zoom microphone. It's not like, so these are Shure's. The SM7B is like the industry standard podcast microphone. This is an MV7 Plus is what I have. So it's about $100 cheaper. And this would be, I would say, like a good entry level podcast mic. They sound really good. But the Zoom has a decent podcast mic. It's what I was using before I bought these ones. And then an audio recorder with XLR inputs. The H4n, Zoom H4n pairs really well with the Zoom microphones. You can get 2 microphones, mic stands, the audio recorder, all for around $500.
Okay.
And then if you have a cell phone with decent storage capabilities.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, right? Because these are long files, big files.
Big files. Then you can just film it and just so you have something. If you had, say, $1,000 budget or something like that, I would buy an Osmo Pocket.
Okay, I have one of those. Yeah, they're
Oh,
cool.
you do?
Yeah.
Which one? Which generation?
Oh, that's beyond me. I don't know.
Well, there's 3. The Osmo Pockets.
I bought it a long time ago, so probably the first generation, if I had to guess. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, not
little camera. I mean, it's like the actual camera is like that big, right?
Yeah.
But
some cell phone cameras are better. Like if you have an iPhone 16, that's a better camera than the original Osmo. But the nice thing about the Osmo Pockets is that they can actually follow you, so you'll always stay in focus. It tracks. So if you're doing, like for you, if you're out on a job, the Osmo Pocket, you can draw a rectangle around your face, and wherever you move, it'll follow you. Yeah. So that's
and I guess for a podcast, if you're moving around or you have you just keeps you in focus. I mean, all in there, you're probably less than 1,000.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you want the 3 camera setup, you can buy a couple of those early generation. And the nice thing about having, like, the camera may be better on an iPhone, the storage most likely is not. You have the external storage capabilities on the Osmo. And the Osmo is really easy to color correct and grade too. DJI is kind of in a league of its own when
Yeah,
it comes to stuff.
they've been innovators for a long time.
Yeah, they're great, crazy.
So, because I mean, you could that three cameras, the mic, the board, everything like that. You'd still only be maybe $1,700, something like that. You know?
Yeah, and that's just if you're like desperate to get started.
Yeah, yeah.
If you have any sort of budget, like the podcast setup that we have in here, sitting at $12,000. Like that's how much equipment I have in this. So, and I'm probably mid-tier, right? So you can really get expensive if you want it.
You can, and it's yes, it gets better, but there's a diminishing thing of returns, I think, right? If you get it just good enough to where it covers the bases, most people aren't going to know the difference,
right?
Especially for when you're first starting. Right. If you do this for 10 years and you want to keep investing in it, yeah, great, go top end, get crazy with it. But this is enough to get a video podcast out. You can put it on Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff. You know.
Yeah. Well, and part of the reason why like you and I are working together in that sense is because you have a vision of making this a staple part of what you do.
Yeah.
And I always tell people you never want to go backwards.
Yeah.
Like if you start and you're going to start on a $500 budget, then do that and then grow.
Yeah, don't go from a $10,000 budget to $1,000, right?
Because like, this wasn't sustainable, so I'm going to sell this and go to
Because that's part of the thing too, is it also goes into your brand, right? If you want to produce a high level show and give your guests the experience, it costs a little more, but I think it comes out in the end, you know?
Right.
And I guess if they're local here, they can use you, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That absolutely. And
how can people find you? What's the best way to connect with you?
ironvideoproductions.com, 262-379-4973. That is my cell phone.
You also have one of the best slogans I think I've heard in a long time.
Wow, I appreciate that. It was like Jesus gave it to me in the middle of the night or
Adding
something.
value one frame at a time. Right?
Yeah.
Which is perfect.
Exactly. And I truly mean that. Like I said in the story earlier, like if I'm not adding value, I'm not going to make you pay for that. Like this is what I'm interested in doing, is taking care of people's needs. So that's what I'm all about. I would say again, like the shameless plug, I guess, at the end of every episode, like if you're interested in having somebody produce a podcast, that's part of the accessibility of what I do. Is like I've started going through, I do everything from pre-production to distribution.
Yep.
So this is just something that takes it off your plate, which is why it was beneficial for us to work together for you, because you're doing 15 other things.
Yeah, and it's you don't want to not be consistent with it.
Right.
You just need to have people that help you get it out there and do these things, because you might be able to do it great for a month, and then you'll get busy and you'll forget. And so that's another testament to you. Is it just like for me, it's currently we've been working through the hurdles and all because of me, right? But it's now in a position where it works, right?
Yeah.
You record it and it goes out and it's on the different platforms and we share it, and it's we got a good cadence going.
Yeah. And if another plug for somebody, if you don't have a guy like your Z, if you don't have a guy like that on your team, get one. So Z, he makes the thumbnails for the podcast. He does a ton of marketing. He's a sales guy. He's really, really smart, super intuitive. So if you're a business owner and you don't have somebody like that on your team, get one.
Yeah, and you can hire one directly, which, like I said, we're very grateful for him. But you can hire one directly, or you can get an agency that has those resources. 100%. So you don't have to have them full time. But I think every business could benefit from somebody who's looking out for you. Unless you're just a wizard with content, focus on running your business and giving that brand its identity, but then let other people take care of it
100%.
And post it consistently.
Yeah. And I think the last thing I'll say is hiring a video producer or hiring a content specialist is also a really important tax write-off. Like there's categories for that for your small business. And if you find yourself overpaying in taxes, utilize and leverage somebody like me. That's a huge, huge tax benefit for you. It takes a ton off your plate. And so that's the thing, is like adding value just isn't in making the content itself. It's in all of the other ways that you can leverage business assets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
and it's funny because tax day's tomorrow.
It is. Yeah. I owe $500 to the state of Wisconsin.
So I won't air before tomorrow, but for next year.
There you go. Taxes.
Yeah.
Boom. I totally forgot about that.
It's tomorrow.
Yeah.
So Well, Joe, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, appreciate
And
it.
again, ironvideoproductions.com. Is that it?
Yes, right.
Right. So reach out to my man here, get a podcast like this or any other content you need.
All right, folks, that's all the time we had for this episode. We're going to end it here and hopefully catch you on the next one.